Alrighty, and we're on. So, I'm sitting here with the full name is actually Dori Ann, isn't it?
Yeah. So actually, I have a Thai first name, Ruchirek,
Yep.
and then Dori Ann is my middle name, and then Duncan.
Okay.
But
And you don't have to
Dori-
face the camera; you can face me.
Okay, yeah.
So if that's easier.
Yeah, so Dori is just easier for everyone, so that's what we use.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what's the Thai name again?
Ruchirek, Rujirek.
And what does that mean?
Oh, I forgot.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it does have a
It
meaning.
probably has a really nice, like, prosperous meaning, but I've forgotten already what it means. Yeah.
So then, in terms of your background, then, so you're half Thai, and what's the other half?
So my dad grew up in Australia,
Mm-hmm.
but I guess the main background would be like Scottish and European. I don't know if this is fully correct, but like Spanish and Portuguese potentially mixed up in there, but Scottish, like definitely.
Yep.
And then a bit of other European. Yeah.
Okay. And so then, in your household when you were growing up, like, was your mum pretty big on like speaking Thai to you, or like trying to teach you about Thai culture and things like that?
I was born there. I was born in Bangkok, and I couldn't speak English till like maybe 4 years old when we moved back to Australia. I think I was about 4. But my dad, even though he grew up in Australia, he speaks, reads and writes fluent Thai.
Okay.
So at home it was always kind of pretty much speaking Thai or like fluctuating between Thai and English.
Yep.
Yeah.
So then what was your dad doing when he was working?
I don't know the exact. I might get in trouble for not knowing the exact thing, but he was working for the Australian government and posted in Bangkok, basically. So yeah, that's how I was born there, and we were living there, and then the posting finished, so we moved back to Canberra, actually, which is where we were from.
Canberra. Okay. So then, do you remember leaving Thailand at 4 years of age? And
A little bit. I don't remember every stage, but I do remember childhood in Thailand. I went to an international school there, so it was an American school. So at school we had to speak like English, but I struggled with that, and I still like to speak Thai. So yeah, I don't really remember how I sounded when I spoke English, but I know it wasn't fluent the way that I'm speaking now. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then, like when you guys moved to Canberra, like did they say anything to you like, oh, we're going to move to a different country, or do you remember?
Nah, I don't remember any of that. I just remember suddenly being in Australia, and then I think I struggled a bit with the language. And then I went to a school across the road, which is actually a Catholic primary school, but like I wasn't raised Catholic. My mum's Buddhist, and I'm very close to my mum, so I always kind of gravitated towards that religion. So I really struggled being like one of the only kids in that school that was not Catholic.
Yeah.
Because they do like communion and like reconciliation and things like that. Each year there's like these milestones, right? And then we'd go to church, and then the kids that get to like eat the bread. Yeah. And I never got to eat the bread. And that was something that I was just like, I had mad FOMO about. I really wanted to eat the bread in church.
It's just like this hard cracker thing.
Yeah. And it was always around the time that's like, like late morning or something. You're kind of a bit, you want to eat something. Yeah. And then I was naughty, and I did eat it one time. And then I was like, oh, it just kind of tastes like, like the cone at Macca's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of a bit airy and
I was like, oh, okay. You know that moment you wait for, and then it happens, and you're like, oh, that's it.
Yeah,
that's
that wasn't what you expected.
But yeah, sorry, I went on a bit of a tangent. But pretty much, no, I don't remember exactly having a conversation of like, we're going to move here. This is what's happening. It was kind of staggered memories of growing up here. Yeah.
Okay. And do you remember trying to make that adjustment in terms of the language? Like, was that a very difficult thing, or was it just like, did they throw you in ESL or? Like?
I can't remember. I don't think there was ESL at my school at the time, but I think I definitely struggled a bit. Like, I wanted to speak Thai. I didn't want to speak English for a little bit, for the first bit of it. Yeah. Yeah. And then as like the years went on, I lost my Thai and started being too shy to use Thai, actually. Oh, okay. And then was more confident with English. Yep. So then we kind of had to do the reverse, and my parents actually sent me back to Thailand to do a course to learn Thai properly, like for about 3 months. Okay. Yeah, and then that kind of reignited my interest in Thai culture and speaking Thai again. So ever since then, I've wanted to be very, very involved with Thai culture again. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And do you have any siblings?
I
have one older sister.
Okay.
Yeah. So she's 11 years older than me.
Wow, that's a big gap.
Yeah, I wasn't planned, clearly.
Okay.
Clearly.
Well, maybe she wasn't the planned one.
Who knows?
Right?
Yeah.
And the reason why I say that is because when I did that podcast I was telling you about with my dad, right?
Yes.
Like, I'm listening to him tell the story about like how him and my mum got together, and then I'm thinking, that time frame. So was my brother, like a blessing, or
Yeah.
or like, rather than saying unexpected, we say it's a blessing.
Blessing,
right?
yeah, divine intervention. Both of us were divine intervention.
Yeah. So okay, that's interesting. So 11 years is a pretty big gap. I guess, what was your relationship like with her as you were growing
really close, really close. She's my best friend. So I think because we weren't super close in age, there wasn't a lot of similarities to like fight over or think, like we were always at different stages of our life.
Yeah.
And she'd already gone past whatever stage I'm going through in life. She'd gone through that. So she was always there to kind of help or guide me. So I always felt I had like this, it wasn't like a mum, but just like an older sister, like best friend that was always helping me through stuff. Yeah.
Did you want to do the things that she was doing?
Yeah, always. I wanted to be just like her. Yeah.
It's actually something common that I found with a lot of siblings. Yeah. So my brother being 7 years older, like I was this 10-year-old wanting to do 17-year-old things.
Yeah, right? And you listen to all the music that they listen to and people are like, how do you know that? That was like before you were born. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, all of her CDs, all of like everything, all the movies she used to love, like she gave me education on like a lot of 80s movies and 80s music that I now still love. So yeah. It's
good, isn't it? It's like it gives you a different perspective on things.
Yeah.
And, sometimes I listen to music and then my wife, she's like, why are you listening to this? Like, it's like some 80s, where it's Chicago or something. Like,
yes, my sister Joy, she loves Chicago. Yeah.
Yeah. And like, I'll be like belting out, Peter Cetera.
Yes.
And then she's like, what are you doing? Like, where's this music come from? And I'm like, I don't know. I just like it.
Yeah. Yeah. Wait, are you close with your brother?
Yeah. So like, I guess nowadays, like I know that he's always there. Like we don't talk every day. We're typical guys from that perspective. We'll be like, message each other every now and then, and just, when we catch up, it's normal. But like when we were growing up, for me and him, my brother was like always really good at computers, and so I remember playing games with him on the computers. Like we had like a home network going.
Oh, how fun!
And so he would be in his room because he had his own computer. He could afford to buy his own computer. I was using the house computer, and then we'd be playing a game on the home network.
Yeah.
But two totally different rooms, like yelling at each other and all that sort of stuff.
Your parents would have loved that.
Yeah. Look, I can see how my parents must have struggled with me because like I think I'm a very like stubborn and willful person. And so when I got to this age where it was just like, I'll just do whatever I want, like I think my mum was probably at a bit of a loss in terms of what to do because like I'd just go to bed really late. I'd be playing games until like 2, 3 a.m. and she didn't know how to stop me.
Yeah, she couldn't tell you what to do at all. Yeah.
And so like I sort of feel like I'm getting a little bit of that karmic retribution now with my own kids.
Yes.
Because I have one of my kids particularly, Eden. She's very willful and like everything has to be her way. And so it's kind of like you got to sort of work out how do you nurture this in the right way.
Correct. Yeah. Because you don't want to force anyone to rebel, right? Like the more you push something, I think the more that people will pull away from it, right?
Yeah.
Like, if you tell me to do something, I think other than my Thai trainers, if anyone tells me to do something, I will do the opposite. So, I don't know how they've managed to, but the trainers, like whatever they tell me to do, I won't question it. I'll just do it.
I think normally when it comes to, like training, right, it's because typically when you don't do what they say, you eat shit.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like if they were saying like, hands down, Dori, hands down, Dori. Yeah. And then you just get punched in the face. It'll be like, oh, okay, I better put my hands up.
Yes, exactly. It's true. It's all for a good reason, but yeah.
Okay, so then, when you were growing up, are there any fond memories for you then? In your household with your sister who's 11 years older than you and
so many. I don't want to get her in trouble with anything either. So, but
don't worry, statute of limitations, right?
Yes,
it's gone past the time where your parents would be upset about.
Yeah, totally, totally. Well, honestly, like at the time, I hated it. Oh, I don't think I hated it, but my mum had a Thai restaurant. My parents had a Thai restaurant in Canberra that they ran with another couple. And so a lot of our life for about 10 years, I think, was spent there.
Yep.
Like I was, I think it was like from 10 years old till teenage. Yeah, like I pretty much grew up in this Thai restaurant. So I just learned the importance of working, getting up, having a routine and doing things. Like I would spend all day like helping roll spring rolls or like cutting basil. And like I learned all these things that I didn't realize I was learning at the time. But now as I've moved out of home, Like, I really love making food. I love like the process of going and getting groceries and learning where the food's from, making the food, entertaining for people that I love. And that all comes from like growing up in a restaurant with my mum, with my family. So, but at the time I was like, oh, this takes up like all our time.
Yeah.
But now I'm so happy that I had that time with her.
Yeah.
So that was our bonding time because it took up all of her time pretty much. So I got to see like a really, really, really hardworking woman all day, every day. And no matter like, it's so hard. Owning a business is so hard. She had no time for herself, but she still was really friendly, like always really grateful to customers, always really nice, like still always made me feel loved. Like, yeah. So that's a really fond memory of mine.
And then from like, you know, because they're working in the restaurant all the time, did you then like spend a lot of your time there eating dinner there?
Yeah, I had the best food.
Yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
I could be like, oh, I feel like a laksa for dinner. And she'd be like, okay, sure.
And just make it for you on the fly.
Just whip up a freaking laksa for you. Yeah, so I was very spoiled in terms of food. And my high school that I went to in Canberra, when we finished year 10, it was very close to my mum's restaurant. So my mum rang and was like, oh, we've closed like lunch service. Do you and your friends want to come? I'll just make like a big like platter of stuff for you to celebrate you guys graduating year 10.
Oh, that's nice.
So that was a really cool memory. It was like 10 of my friends, like 16-year-olds.
Yep.
Having the whole restaurant to ourselves, celebrating finishing year 10. Yeah.
And then, okay, so when it came to schooling, like what would your teacher say about you? Like what kind of student were you?
Up until like year 6, primary school, I was good. And then from high school until like, I actually dropped out of year 11. I struggled so much. Now, as an adult, I haven't been diagnosed, but I don't really think I need to do the test. I'm pretty sure I got ADHD. So I really struggled in school just concentrating. When it got to the stuff, like in primary school, it's not the stuff you can pass pretty easily.
Yeah.
With what you're learning. But in high school and college, like there was stuff I really had to focus on, and I just realized I wasn't focusing. And then I realized I don't learn from like reading books and listening to someone telling me what to do. I have to physically do the thing. And that's how I learn. So yeah, I just declined and I just felt really shit about myself and was always wagging school because I was like, oh, I'm failing anyway. So
yeah, wow.
Yeah. And then for some reason, because in Canberra there's not much to do after school. Like you go to uni or you work for the government.
Yep.
And neither of those were like for me.
Yeah.
So yeah, I dropped out and then I actually moved to Sydney at 18, I think. And just started my job like in retail and still the same job that I do now, almost 14 years later.
Whoa. Okay,
yeah.
hang on. Let's pull up a little bit there because, you know, for you to make a decision to move cities, right? Even though like, you know, Canberra's like 4 hours away and decide, so you obviously would have come to Sydney by yourself, right?
Yeah, like in Canberra, because it's just at the time, this was how long ago? Fuck, like 20 years ago. There was not that much to do.
Yeah.
Now Canberra's pretty cool, actually, I would have to say. Like I would go back and live there probably. But at the time, everyone knew each other. You see the same people, do the same shit every day. Like it just got old. So yeah, we spent a lot of time like your friends or you just do day trips to Sydney and it just seemed like this whole big city where there was just so much more opportunity and stuff to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then like what did your parents say when you were like, oh, I'm just going to move to Sydney?
Oh, they're kind of like probably like how you were saying about your parents. Like my mum was like, well, whatever you decide to do, I know you're just going to do it. So I can't really say like, no, you can't, or can you just stay for a bit longer? So yeah, they pretty much just had no choice. Wow. Unfortunately. I don't know how they were okay with it. Maybe they weren't, but they just knew they couldn't really do anything.
So then what was your plan? Like no plan. So,
no fucking plan.
Okay, so how did you get up here? Did you drive or did you fly?
No, there's like a bus. There's a Murray's, good old Murray's bus. At the time, it was probably like $40 for a trip or $30 for a single trip. I was dating someone at the time. Like I had a boyfriend here. So we moved in together here. And then, yeah, just like went out handing out CVs in the city anywhere I could and then luckily got a job. And haven't really left that job since, but it's always worked around my life.
Okay.
Working there. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Pretty crazy.
Like, you know, it is a big decision to go and do something like that. But then to do it without really, you know, having a plan, it was just like, okay, here's pay for the Murray's bus and away you go. And then you rock up here and then it's like, okay, well, better find a job. Yeah,
but that's when you're young, right? You just don't know. You're so unaware of the world and unaware of any consequences. You're not scared of anything. You're just like, oh, well, I want to do this, so I'll just do it. Well, that's how I was anyway.
Yeah.
I did not think about, it wasn't like, what if I run out of money? What if I was just like, oh, well, I'm pretty miserable in Canberra. All I'm doing is partying. I don't want to go to uni.
Yep.
All my friends are in uni or working in the government. And I just felt like I was going nowhere in life. So I was like, okay, I just
need to see change.
Yeah, I need to do something else.
So were you like pretty rebellious then when you were in school, or is it just because you just didn't really resonate with the teaching style and so then you sort of switched off? And
probably the second one, yeah. But I partied a lot, probably because, I don't know, like to escape or because I just didn't know, I had no direction. So yeah, I just worked a lot. I worked in hospitality heaps. So then in that industry, that's what you do. Like you're around drinking and partying. So then in your free time, you drink and you party.
And then were your parents ever worried about you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Poor things. Yeah, I'm sure they were. I remember I called my sister drunk one time and because I'd been arrested for like underage clubbing.
Oh no.
Yeah, and I was like, I'm at the police station. But like, yeah, I was 17, so luckily, I guess I don't really have a record. I don't know.
Yeah.
I haven't been arrested since then, touch wood.
Okay. So you got to tell.
I know, I'm jumping so many.
You need to go into this story in a bit more detail. So you're out at a club, and then how do you get caught?
Oh, yeah. So, well, I went before this point, I'd been underage clubbing for so long.
Yeah.
Like, we all do it, right? And then...
So who oh, no, let me rephrase. I'm guessing you obviously got a fake ID from somewhere.
Did I?
Or did you just
someone
use somebody else's?
like a friend's cousin or something that didn't even remotely really look like me, but it worked.
Okay.
Yeah, and that had been working for a while. But then this club that we went to, a bunch of us were underage, always going there. But then I guess that night, like the, I forgot what they're called, liquor licensing or whatever, like came to check people's IDs and they actually looked at the ID properly and were like, that's not you. So I was like, oh, fuck, okay.
Okay, I'm just visualizing this in my head. It's like you got this liquor and licensing guy going,
yeah,
whatever the name was, and it's like, I don't think that's you. And then what did you do?
I can't remember. I was so off my face. Yeah, I was probably just like, yeah, it's not, huh?
You got me.
You got me. And then I remember they took me to the police station. This was, I think I was 17. I'm 33 now, by the way. So it's hard to kind of remember this. And I remember they called my parents. I think it was maybe like 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning. And I think my dad, was in the background being like, oh, can you just keep her there? We'll get her in a few more hours. Yeah, can we just have a decent night's sleep and then we'll come and get her? But yeah, that was it. And then I was calling my sister crying. At the time she lived overseas, so I was calling her crying about being arrested.
Caught. Yeah.
And then fun fact, but I also still kind of feel a little bit guilty about this. That establishment got fined heaps for.
Oh, wow.
And then I ended up working for that place.
Oh, wow.
For a while afterwards, but they didn't know I was one of the ones that was the reason.
It's your penitence, right? Like you got to repay them.
Yeah, but they had no idea. But they lost heaps of money because they got fined so much for, I guess, all the underage people that were caught. Yeah.
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 Wow. Okay.
That's a memory I have not. That's been locked away for years. Wow.
We've just dug it right open.
Yeah. Wow.
Okay. So then you come up to Sydney and then you put your resume into all these places.
Yeah.
Did you get many callbacks or was it just
Nah.
No?
Mm-mm.
So then, I'm guessing it was obviously Lacoste that called you back, right?
Yeah. At the time, it was like Lacoste, the company that runs Lacoste in Australia and New Zealand is it's like an umbrella company that has heaps of other brands. So it was another brand that I was working at. You know, Rockport shoes? Yeah. Like orthopedic footwear. Yeah. So it was that. And then I got a job there and then I realized like, man, I just want to work with like pretty clothes, you know? And then I found out Lacoste was part of the company too. So I asked to be moved to Lacoste.
Okay.
And worked as a casual, worked full time, eventually ended up being like store manager for a while. Gave it a go in head office and realized like, I don't really like a job where I have to sit all day.
Yeah.
Again, ADHD probably kicking in. And I was like, I'm used to like standing and like interacting with people and in the shop. So I actually quit and then asked to go back to the shop.
Wow.
After working in the office. So this is after maybe already 10 years in the company, progressing.
So, okay. When that happened, right, were they the ones that said to you, hey, Dori, you know, we want you to take this opportunity and come work at head office? Or like, how did it come about?
I can't remember. I think just because I'd been in the shop, like the same shop for 10 years and doing the same, like there's not much more you can do as a store manager or many more like things that you can upskill, right? So the next level of growth in the company was, okay, there's an opportunity in head office. Do you want to do this? I think it might have been me just because I was like, I want to do something else. Yeah.
Give it a try.
And then I realized, I don't really want to work in an office.
How long did you last?
I think not even 6 months.
Wow.
Yeah, not even. And that was also when Muay Thai started more for me. I think I'd done a bit before Muay Thai on and off. And then because it was really high, for me, it was a high stress job. And I didn't know how to deal with it. And I was getting really fat because I was drinking and smoking and always snacking and just sitting. Yeah. Right? So then I was like, the highlight of my day was when my work day ended and I'd go to Muay Thai at night for stress relief. Yeah. And then I think as that job continued, I realized, I really love Muay Thai. I really love like fitness. So maybe I'll go back and just do like a less stressful, maybe just casual position in the store and pursue fitness and Muay Thai. Yeah. And that was, I don't know, I don't even remember how many years. Must have been like 8. I don't even know, honestly. Must have been 8-ish years ago or 7-ish. And yeah, Muay Thai just completely consumed my life ever since then. Yeah. Yeah.
So then, okay, what was the original catalyst for you to get into Muay Thai?
I always liked it and I always thought it was really cool. I always liked martial arts as a kid. So I actually did Tang Soo Tao, which is Korean martial arts. Yeah. From what I can tell, it's pretty similar looking to Taekwondo. I like the forms and stuff seem to have similar names. So I did that from like 5 years old until like 16.
Okay. And that was just at some place in Canberra?
In Canberra, yeah. But then like as I started getting more rebellious and a teenager and partying, that just dropped off. And I guess once I moved to Sydney, the Thai presence, like Thai cultural presence and Thai population in Sydney is pretty big. Yeah. There's actually a Thai town. Like there's Chinatown, there's Koreatown, there's Thai town. So once I moved to Sydney, I always found myself gravitating and just like getting like, you know, groceries or things like that made me feel closer to my mum. And then I walked past a place that was like a Muay Thai gym. But it was just like this random door with like a piece of paper stuck that was like, it was like Muay Thai, like text this number if you want to train. Okay. And I was like, yeah, that's the kind of Muay Thai I want to do. Like there's not all this like fancy like flashy lights or anything. Yeah. And yeah, it was a place where like the owner, he lived there. It was in Haymarket. It's now called Singha Gandha. I can't say it properly, sorry. But my original trainers, they've rebranded and they've started it. So it's operating now still. It's not a fight gym. Yeah, it's not a fight gym, but I'm still very close to those two and they have a very special place in my heart. So I still go and visit them or they still always support me on my fights. So
are they more like just oriented towards fitness?
I believe so, yeah. But there's a massive Thai community in Haymarket. So a lot of Thai people actually go there just like, for fitness and I guess just to do a sport that's actually still maybe connected to Thailand in a way. Yeah.
Just going back to the Tang Soo Do thing.
Oh, yes.
I'm a little bit curious about, you know, were there any competitions available for that style of martial art? Like
yes, yeah.
Did you ever compete in any of that stuff?
I did, yeah. Like I did quite a few. I think I have. There's probably trophies somewhere. Like there are quite a few national like tournaments and stuff that I did. I made it pretty much up until whatever the last step is before black belt. Okay. Yeah. I really liked it, but then I just realized like a lot of it was really super structured. So I just didn't feel like, I think there'd been a few times where I'd gotten in fights, like drunken nights out or whatever. And I was like, oh fuck, I've been doing martial arts like how long? And I don't feel like I can defend myself.
Wait, so did you actually lose some fights at some of these fights or?
I don't know. I don't think there was a winner.
She just watched the memory here. Yeah. Like, I blame the alcohol and it's like, I was off my face.
I don't know. Yeah, I probably got smashed heaps. Yeah, but I've just suppressed that. And then I was like, I've been doing martial arts forever, but I don't feel like I can defend myself still. So, I think that was when I started watching Muay Thai and I was like, fuck, like they actually hurt each other. They can actually like really hurt each other and cause pain. And that's what I liked about it.
And so then when you started Muay Thai, like how did you find those first few sessions?
Oh man, I wanted to vomit all the time. Because kicking in Muay Thai is different to kicking in any other martial art. Like just the lactic acid buildup. I just, and it will just be normal to be like, all right, start the round with 10 kicks. Okay, do 2 minutes of really intense pad work and then end the round with another 10 or 20 or 30 kicks. Like, I just had never done anything like that before. And I remember, like, my calves just always cramping.
Oh, yeah.
Always, yeah.
Always on the balls of your feet.
Always. But now my calves are like tennis balls on my legs, pretty much. Because it's like, that's just what my body's used to now. Yeah. Have you done Muay Thai? Like, I know you mostly train MMA, right?
Yeah. But so I was training at a place called Janus Muay Thai.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
Yeah. So Dan and Zane, they're really good. But it's like, so they're I would say, in terms of the Muay Thai gyms in Sydney, most of the Muay Thai gyms would probably say we're the cowboy gym. When people go there, if you're visiting, you're going to have a rough time.
Yeah.
Right? Let's just be real. And like, it depends on how you approach it, right? And I don't say that in a negative way. I say that in a positive way. Like, I remember the first time I went there, I was just messaging with Dan back and forth, and then on my first session, like, I was sparring with Zane, and he's dropped me 3 times with body shots.
Yeah, right.
And it was just like, okay, all right. And so, like, depending on your mentality, like, some people would eat that shit and then probably be like, I'm never going back there. But what I realized after, spending more time with them is that when you've trained somebody else, somewhere else, and you come to that gym, it's like, okay, we're going to show you respect by giving, by going hard, right? Yeah. Because otherwise, like, if I just play with you, it's like I don't really respect you at all.
Right.
Right. So that's their mentality in terms of how they approach it. So, some people that will resonate for, other people it won't. And so I think, if you're like, training somewhere else and then you go there, you're probably going to have a pretty rough time. But then people either they resonate with that culture or they don't. It's not to say it's like that for beginners. Like, they have beginner classes for the beginners. But here I was rocking up like for, like the
fighters
pro session.
Class,
fighters class, right?
Yeah.
And so they didn't know me from a bar of soap. And over time, you just build these really amazing friendships as a result of like,
trauma bonding.
Yeah, basically. Right? And so like, I think, that applies to almost any martial art, right? Like, there's different cultures in terms of like, the mentality of what the coaches instill in that gym.
Totally.
And so as the person visiting, you should always try and identify what is that culture and then play to that so that you're respectful of that as well.
1000%, yeah.
So, if you're rocking up to a gym there, that's the culture, well then, you've got to actually, like, you shouldn't shy away from it. You should just be respectful about it and still do your best.
Yes.
Right? Like, that's ultimately what they're looking at is like, do you have the heart to keep going? They're not trying to kill you, but they are going to make it difficult on you.
Yes.
Right? Whereas, if you go to another gym, like, and they don't spar as much, like, that might be seen as disrespectful. Like, you're coming in and you're challenging the place. Yeah. Right? So it cuts both ways. I guess, for me, like, I'm fortunate to have now been in this role where, like, I've visited so many gyms and trained at so many different places that I can sort of pick up on it pretty quickly. And so then I'm always respectful as well. Like, at the end of the day, like, I'm at this stage where I'm not really competitive anymore. Like, when I say I'm not competitive, I'm not competing anymore. But I'm happy to be a good body for people to work with, and help to coach wherever I am, and then be a good sparring partner, right? Like, being a good sparring partner doesn't mean that you have to win every single round.
No.
Like, you got to look at the things that I'm always conscious of is, where is this person in their camp? So, like, as an example, Far, who's one of our pros at Rockdale under coach Renato, I was doing her last session on the Sunday sparring before she went away for her one championship debut. Yeah. So it's like, it's not helpful in that session to go super hard. It's her last session before she goes away. Sometimes you got to be able to give that person the mindset and the confidence to be like, okay, I'm ready for this. Yep. Right. So there's a lot that goes into being a good sparring partner, and you really do have to like sort of put your ego aside if you're actually invested in that person. Yeah. If you're not. And like, that's why I think it's always difficult if you're a coach and a competitor, because you need to be able to delineate when are you coaching and when are you being a competitor. Yes. And so, there's very few that can get that right, and I think a lot of the times when people are still competing and they're coaching, the ego can come into it sometimes. And that's not healthy for the relationship either.
No, and it doesn't help either of you.
No.
Yeah.
So I'm at this stage now where, and look, I guess for me, you know, I've sort of come to this point in my life where it's like I don't really have anything to prove anymore. Like, you know, when I spar, people know where I'm at, you know, and so I don't have to go and prove something. I want to try and instead focus my attention on people to try and get them better.
And help them. Yeah.
Right. And so, you know, a lot of the people that I train with now, they're all younger athletes who are trying to make it. And, you know, I have like a different capacity now where like I'm at events and I'm ring announcing or I'm doing commentary and I'm doing all these other things that, you know, like I feel like it's conflict of interest.
Right. Yeah. Right? I have always wondered about that when you have one person involved, like, okay, you're reffing, but then you're also doing, like a podcast and then you're also training partners with them or you're a promoter as well. Like, you know, how do you
put all the different hats on? So the big thing for me is like, I think the integrity piece is so important, right? So even though like I might train with with MMA FFT and spend time with that team, or I, you know, might train out of grappling education and the guys in that team, when I call events, everything is always down the line, right? Because the moment that somebody can question your integrity, you're already half out of a job.
Yeah, right.
So, you know, as an example, like the guys at ATT will often have beef with the guys at MMA FFT. And so when we have Urban Fight Night, like sometimes, you know, like, people might go, oh, well, how do you balance that? And it's like, well, no, like everybody sees me. I walk around with a notepad before I do commentary and I'm like taking notes.
Yeah.
And I always like to ask people, you know, what are their predictions and all that sort of stuff so that I can talk about it. And, you know, a lot of the time, you know, I have my phone over one half of the page because then if their teammates or whatever are looking at what I'm writing, they can only see what I'm writing about them. They can't see what I'm writing about the other, like what I've written about the other person. And so that integrity cuts both ways. So for me, like I'm really strict about that because I feel like, you know, the moment that you lose that, then you've lost it forever.
Yes, true.
So so whenever like even the guys at FFT, they know like they don't ask me for any insight. Not that I can tell them anything beforehand anyway, but like literally like I will just always just ask. I ask everybody the same questions and I always keep it respectful on both sides. And then when I'm actually talking about it on commentary, it's not like they can hear me anyway because they're already in the cage. Right. When they're in the ring.
Yeah, it doesn't affect them directly.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's already unfolding, so it's okay for me to talk about then what each side is going to do because that's part of like, you know, trying to explain to the audience.
Yes.
You know, what's the story here? What's the background? You know, what are we looking for? What are each of the fighters looking for? And I always like encourage people when I'm doing commentary to call their shot because if they've been working at something in camp and they think that that's the way that they're going to finish the fight, there is no harm in saying that.
No, it's not cocky at all. Like that's what you've been spending your like months, weeks, whatever, dedicated to doing. So yeah. And
if anything, I feel like it helps the audience to sort of understand, okay, what is actually being played out here, right?
Yes.
Like I always feel like, you know, when people watch back their fights and if I'm commentating, I want to make sure that the fighter actually gets something out of it as well.
Yeah.
Right. So that, you know, when the fighter watches it back, if they made a mistake on something, like I've got no issues in saying that. I know it might upset some people, but I'm just calling it how I see it. And, you know, like, people are welcome to have differences of opinion, but I'll talk about it the way that I see it and why I think certain counters might be more effective. So it could be something simple like, you know, foot position, you know, orthodox versus southpaw. So open stances and, you know, if one person's doing a better job of taking the outside foot position, I can talk about that. But then at the same time, if somebody knows how to play the inside position, then I can talk about that.
Yeah.
So there's all these layers to it. But like, I think when you are operating in the combat sports industry, you really have to take that integrity to the next level, especially like somebody like me who's wearing multiple hats.
Yeah.
The moment that you lose it, it's gone. So that's why I'm very protective about that. And I always just, I'm conscious of that as well. And like, you know, if it comes to like after a fight, I'm always happy to help anybody. So if somebody comes up to me after a fight and they're debriefing with me, you know, in terms of what happened, I can tell them what I saw and what I think. But like at the end of the day, it's just what I saw, what I think.
Yeah.
You know, it's up to them to go away and actually
how they interpret that.
Yeah. How they interpret that, how they take that away with their coaches.
Yes.
And then what do they do from there? So that's how I sort of balance it. It's not easy.
It's not easy. No.
Yeah.
It's interesting you brought that up as well about like going back to when you were saying about being a sparring partner, but also being a trainer. Like I've reached that point now where, you know, now I'm working a lot with like, I'm working really hard on my career as a fighter as well, right? Like I'm really like pushing and trying to like make this name for myself so I can create more opportunity. And then with that, hopefully I am bringing more opportunity for others in the sport as well. That's my main goal. So then it's been really cool to see in the gym at SRG. Like, I'm not saying it's just because of me single-handedly. It's not. We have a really amazing fight team of men and women that has just raised the bar in SRG, and an amazing coaching team. But, you know, in the last year, you know, there's been a huge increase of girls just starting or being more interested in fighting. And so now I'm finding myself like, you know, I'm doing more PTs and coaching these girls, as well as being their training partners at times as well. So like, yeah, when I'm sparring, I'm in a camp too, but I'm sparring girls, but also wanting to help them. Yeah. So I'm learning how to differentiate that to be their training partner, but also be, sometimes I am like, some of them do say I'm their trainer or coach, right? Yeah. Which I don't see myself as, but I can tell that, you know, if I tell them something, they're really taking it in. So yeah, just being super aware of like, okay, there's people watching how you do things, how you react to things.
And I think the way that you got to balance that out is just to know what you're trying to achieve out of that session. Yeah. You know, like that's something that I'm really big on is like, you know, and especially for me, even myself at the moment, right? Because I'm like traveling a lot and I'm doing a whole bunch of different things and visiting a lot of gyms that I probably don't have the consistency that is required to actually develop new skill sets. So I'm very mindful of that. So I sort of I'm in like a maintenance mode where if I'm training 2-3 times a week and that's all I can do at the moment because of everything else that's going on, that I'm very conscious that when I do train, it's like, okay, if it's a grappling class, I'm really going to focus on what's being shown because I don't have the time to just work on the things that I need to work on. I might as well just try and upgrade my skills based on what's being taught.
Right then.
And then when it comes to like sparring, it's like, okay, I got to be very conscious about, okay, maybe I might just limit my weapons and just say, okay, these are the setups that I want to work on. Right?
Yeah, that's good. Like stripping it down to improve like small improvements, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Because I think what we're seeing at the moment, especially in combat sports, is like in the well-established sports, you can see like there's certain things that give you 80% of the result, right? Like there's certain, whether it's like, okay, if we talk about say boxing as an example, right? Typically orthodox versus southpaw open stances, people that always try and take outside foot position generally allows them to use the rear hand better. Yep. Right? And so like there's a lot of things that are sort of established and they sort of become, people can become too fixated on these ideas and turn them into rules.
Right. Yes.
But the better you get, then the more you can bend those rules. Right? You know, people always talk about, you know, you shouldn't cross your feet over. What if I'm throwing a spinning attack? Yeah. It's the perfect time to cross my feet. Yes. So it's like, you know, I'm really big on the idea of like everything in moderation, including moderation. So all of these rules, like if you're brand new to the sport and you're trying to develop yourself as an athlete, then you really need to be really strict about your fundamentals. And any good coach will force you to be really strict about those fundamentals. Yeah. But then I think when you're thinking about it from a coaching aspect, you also then need to look at, okay, when is an athlete good enough to now bend some of these rules to get the right result? Because you would see this yourself, right? Like when you watch amateur Muay Thai fighters and like what are the common counters that people get caught with versus professional Muay Thai fighters, the counters are very different.
Very different, yeah.
Yeah. So I guess like for you, when you think back on, I guess, your amateur career versus your pro career, when did you first have how many years were you training or how long had you been training before you had your first Muay Thai fight?
I think really casually I'd been doing like PTs in group classes. I don't know, maybe 2 years, 3 years on and off. And then when I decided, okay, let's like actually have my first amateur fight, I think I dedicated around 3 months. Just went hard for 3 months. One thing I'll say to anyone is like learn defense. I'm pretty sure I did like my first 5 amateur fights without any defense, like not much focus on defense whatsoever. I just thought it was, I just was like, okay, go forward and just throw fucking everything. Yeah. And then now like the more advanced you get and the, you know, higher level people that you fight, there's actually less volume in the fight with Muay Thai anyway. I'm not sure about other sports, but because you're thinking about your technique, you're thinking about your timing, you're thinking about like placement of things. Yep. You're not just going in there to like go ham and kill each other. Yep. Yeah. Like my first 5 fights, I'm like, I can't believe I went into the ring without knowing defense, how to block my face. I didn't know how to clinch properly for a long time. I got TKO'd in like my fourth fight, a girl just like grabbed me and just kept I think it was like 9 knees straight. But I'd been doing Muay Thai for so many years and didn't know how to clinch, you know?
Yeah.
Like, and it's funny you mention about, everyone should have good basics, right? I believe that too. Before you start adding all the like tricky, fun, cool looking shit. And like today I actually had two people a couple that I love to do PTs with. And I think they're kind of like MMA background, but now gravitating more towards Muay Thai. And so I noticed they actually switch stance quite a bit.
Yep.
And I'm like, that's a really good skill to have. That's awesome. But then because your base isn't 100% yet in one stance. So then when you switch to the other one, you're like off balance and you're pretty disoriented.
Yeah.
So for now, like don't bother doing all of the like switchy southpaw stuff if you're orthodox. Like let's get everything right and planted properly so that like you can't get swept easily.
Yep.
You know? Because people like this, we all do it. You watch UFC, you watch One Championship and you see all this cool stuff that people with 50 plus fights are doing and you want to do that.
You're emulating. Yeah.
Yeah. But then you forget like, for that 10 minutes that those pros are in the ring, they have trained minimum 10 years probably. I don't even know how many hours that is. I don't know how many injuries, how many physio sessions, how many like times they've been knocked out.
Yeah.
Just to be able to perform at that level for 10 minutes in the ring.
Yeah. Well, yeah, like it's amazing how much you need to invest to developing those skill sets, right? Just because you can switch stances doesn't mean you should.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
It depends on like what maybe your opponent's better if you don't switch stances, right? Like they're not as comfortable in that battle.
Yes.
So there's so many things that I like. That's why I love combat sports, right? Because there's so many avenues of way things can unfold.
Yeah, you can never predict any of it. Yeah.
So then, okay, when it came to so after your first 5 fights where you had no defense, like what was the catalyst to like who pulled you up on it? Did somebody go, hey, Dori, you get hit a lot?
Well, I think lots of people were telling me that and I was feeling it. But I realized I was losing a lot too. I think after like 5 amateur fights, I'd only won 1.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I was just like, man, I'm like devoting so much of this. I love this so much. And in training, I feel like a beast. And then when I get into the fight, it's just not happening.
Yeah.
I think I took a really big break. I think I took like a 3-year break because all of that took my confidence. But I still stayed in the sport and still was training, but just no competitive edge to it. And then that was when I kind of left my gym that I started at because I realized, they've given me really good fundamentals, but they're not a fight gym. And I'd seen, like I knew just through like the Thai community, I knew a lot of the trainers already at SRG. Lewis Regis, massive name in Australian Muay Thai, a fighter I always love to watch and look up to. So I just felt like if I want to fight and really pursue this is the place that can do it for me.
Yep.
Yeah. And since then haven't looked back and I don't know. It's been a really cool effort from all of us, like myself, Lewis, each of my trainers, like I really feel how invested they've been in me and all the effort that, whatever effort you put in is reciprocated, I think, in most relationships.
Yeah.
So I've really felt that with them and they've just helped me so much since I walked through those doors. So, yeah.
Did they change a lot of your style when you came through?
Yeah, definitely. Like I had the good like basics, they always said, but they're like, you just don't have like the confidence or you don't know when to execute certain things. Or, so all the little tiny adjustments, but it takes like 6 days a week training, 3 to 5 hours a day to fix those adjustments. And even in a camp when you're drilling like for 8 weeks straight, maybe they're drilling like I'm doing clinching like way more for one camp. Then the fight comes, I barely clinch. And then that stuff comes out maybe 3 fights later. Yeah. Like it's just because you do something in camp doesn't mean it always comes out when you want it to or the way you were planning to.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that, and we'll talk a little bit about Ray, who comes in and buys stuff from Lacoste because
shout out to Ray
because Cooper just had his one championship fight on Friday against Ordakov, a guy that he beat Percy by unanimous decision, and we were drilling a lot of obviously takedown defense for that camp, and then Cooper still got taken down, but then in what it was that we put it out of the bag was with the submission. But it was just funny, we drilled so much on the takedown defense aspect and drilled it so much. Yeah. But then it's just one of those things that, when you get in there and you really, you feel what the other person's strength is like, what their energy is like. And, sometimes you just can't get the timing right, because it's an adjustment, right? It's just like when you're in a fight. That's why typically Muay Thai starts a little bit slower because people are trying to get those reads and those adjustments.
Yes.
Yeah, unless you're super lek.
Unless you're super lek. Yeah,
and just coming in guns blazing.
Or even just lek at my gym. I don't know if you've watched any of his fights yet, but like before most of his fight, because he's had, I think, 400 or something, you know, just the standard amount for any Thai. And I'll be like, oh, how do you think you're going to win this one? And he'll be like, probably like round 2, elbow, I think KO. And then he did it.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's how comfortable you are. That's how much trust you have in your abilities.
Yeah.
And how much confidence and how many times you've probably pulled it off before to be able to just call that and actually execute it.
Yeah.
Like I'm still pretty new. You know, I think I'm now 15 fights in. So I'm still learning. When I watch my fights back, I'm like, man, that was the perfect opportunity. I actually could have like KO'd this person. But you don't, it's just, you're not there yet. You haven't reached that point yet, right? Yeah. So people are like, oh, you could have done this. But like, I'm not there yet. You know, like the Thais, they can just read. They've been in that situation, I don't know, 50,
How
60.
many times, yeah.
Yeah, so they know what their body is capable of. Like we're still, in Australia, like all of us, like a lot of foreigners, our fight level is lower, right? So
do you think, because I know like typically for a lot of the Thais, especially if they started young, it's like they're fighting every two weeks or every month.
Yeah, or
right?
even multiple times a week, some of them. Like they'll be like, hey, no elbows this fight, yeah, because I've got one. I've got another one coming in a few days. Yeah. And if I have a cut, it's going to obviously make me lose. Yeah. So it's just nothing. I think it honestly just becomes another day or another week to them.
But but like in comparison to like the Australian scene, it's like by the time you're actually fighting on a show, there's a bit of production there.
Yeah.
It sort of elevates all the risk factors, right?
It is good in a way, but I think also when you're first starting, it just adds all this pressure. Now, in my mind, I've really like worked a lot mentally on these things and being like, pressure is imaginary. Pressure is what you make it. Yeah. So if I feel like this massive show and now I'm like main event or co-main or there's a belt on the line, at the end of the day, I'm still having to train just as hard as I was at any other fight. There's now a really awesome opportunity to have a belt, but I still have to fucking put in 110%. I still have to like recover properly. I still have to turn up and do this, and this for this fight every other time. So like I have every other time. So I think it's really cool in Thai culture because they don't have any of that. There's none of this showy stuff. But on the other side, you know, in the Western world, we promote it a bit more. We make it like a bit of a, you know, we jazz it up. Yeah. But those things are also good because it grows the sport. It gives the fighters more opportunities. It gives them more exposure. I think it's good to have like a bit of both, like understand you're there to do a job. And also like, I think you should respect yourself and respect how hard you're working and appreciate that what you're doing is something pretty cool and pretty special. But also just remember there's a Thai out there with like, or an MMA fight or another boxer or whatever that is ready to like throw you on your ass as well. So like just because you're really good or you think you're feeling really good this camp, there's always someone working really hard or there's always someone more experienced, right? Yeah. So there's one thing that I always see contrasting with like Thai culture and Western culture with a lot of Western fighters. There's just a lot of cockiness, right? Yeah. So I think it is good to be self-confident. I think it's really good to be confident and back yourself, but I don't believe in cockiness. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you know, we've seen, you know, there's plenty of examples where that's gone wrong, right?
Yeah.
There's also plenty of examples where it's gone right.
Yeah.
So they're two sides of the same coin. And like I'm curious about you when you said you've done a lot of work in terms of like your own mindset when it comes to nervousness. And I guess to sort of give you an idea in terms of how I approach that was like, I used to do a lot of, so when I was training Kung Fu, I did a lot of like competitions for forms, demonstrations and stuff like that as well. And so there's one time, you know, I think one of the first big comps I did in China and it was like packed stadium and we're competing against the Shaolin monks.
Wow.
And so like the monks, like they bring like this massive crew and like they like, you know, they're doing all the big chants and stuff like that. And it's pretty like a great atmosphere. And the way that I sort of learnt to deal with like that pressure of performance was when you think about like nervousness, right? What are the sort of feelings that you get? You know, the butterflies in your stomach, you need to go and pee, like those sorts of things, right? Like everybody gets those same emotions, right?
Yeah.
But then when you think about, you know, what happens when you get excited about something.
Yes.
It's the same thing.
It's the same.
Yeah,
Same physical effect.
Same physical effect. So then, the way that I started to then approach it was like the only difference is in terms of how I look at it. I can either look at it and say, oh, I'm really nervous, this is a bad thing. Or I can look at it as, oh, I'm really excited, this is going to be amazing.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And so that was what sort of allows me to sort of just really enjoy the moments when the lights are on and there's, a performance, or like it's showtime or it's fight time or whatever. Like that's what I like.
Yes.
I guess, for you, like, how did you sort of adjust your mentality when it came to that sort of stuff?
It was a very gradual thing. It wasn't an overnight thing. But yeah, so as I mentioned, I was losing a lot of fights and just like feeling really not confident in myself. And so I actually got recommended to see a mental performance coach. So he specializes in athletes and had done a lot of work with Muay Thai athletes. And I think some UFC, just a lot of athletes, combat sport athletes.
Mm-hmm.
But his background was rugby, but international level, like playing for England.
Okay.
And I still see him now. We talk like fortnightly or weekly, even if I'm not in camp.
Yep. Do you want to give him a shout out?
Oh yeah, Mark Edmondson. Anyone that wants to talk to him. So that was maybe 3 years ago, which is pretty much when my Muay Thai career started taking off.
Okay.
So without him and without, all my trainers and Luis believing in me, that combo together, so we just started really small. I think, I don't even remember how we started, but I think he was just like, just figure out your why. Like, why are you doing this? Why is Muay Thai important to you? And then we, went to the root of it, and I thought, I'm really connected to like my mum, my Thai culture. I think Muay Thai is really beautiful, and I think this is a way for me to feel close to that and represent that. And I want to interpret, like the way that I interpret it when I'm doing it is hopefully making her proud or making Thai people proud. Or
So what does your mum think about the fighting?
Well, my family's really proud of me, but when she found out I was fighting, she was just like, I don't understand why you have to fight. Like, can you just train and do? Because I was always a tomboy, so she always knew that I was gonna do like rough sports. But she's just like, I just don't understand why you have to actually fight. And in Thailand as well, it's maybe a bit different now. There's a lot more exposure and opportunities for females, but like, you didn't really do it if you had a choice to earn money another way.
Yeah,
it's not something you pursued as a passion. So she was just like, why? And I grew up here, so it's even weirder, I think, right? It's not like I grew up in Thailand around all sorts of fighters and Muay Thai gyms.
Well, it's that old adage, you always want what you don't have.
Maybe, must be. And so, with Mark, I can't even remember like what our first few sessions were, but it was just finding out why I really, like, when the nerves come, like, you're doing this because you love it. Like, so that's a positive thing. Like, make this a positive thing, And it was just about beating myself. It wasn't about any opponents. It wasn't about any long-term goals. It was just like, you need to beat yourself and like prove to yourself that you can do this. Yeah. And so, just been building on that ever since then.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then, and then you can find some success, and then obviously that helps the confidence, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So I think since I started, I think that first year I went like 4-0, like 4 fights undefeated. And then this year was 6 fights, 2 losses. I don't know, this year, who knows, but we're starting this year really big. I've got I've got a WBC title fight against my first international opponent, Judy Humber, and we're like co-main event. So
it's exciting.
It's funny to think about. I fought this all-female event, Muay Thai League, 2.5 years ago when I first started to decide to go like 100%. And that was when I had zero confidence in myself, and I started doing the mental coaching, and I actually wanted to quit just before this. And Lewis was like, come on, there's this show, all female. I think we should just give it a try.
Yep.
And then since then, the trajectory has just been like, just going 110%. And it's just crazy. Like 2 years later, Nakia, the promoter, has given a lot of opportunities to me and helped my career a lot. She's she's also match made this fight with like Judy, the girl I'm fighting, is WBC world number 1 at the moment. Yep. So, to start the year with a fight like that, that's sick for me.
It's huge,
yeah,
right?
It's huge. And, ending the year last year with like pretty much Australia's most like biggest female Muay Thai show.
Yeah.
4-woman competition.
Yeah, the Infliction one.
Yeah. So it's just crazy, like we were talking about before. 1 year in combat sports, a lot can happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I guess, when you actually, let's just talk a little bit about that tournament first because, you know, four women eliminator, you know, for people that don't know, if you win your first fight, then you have a second fight. You know, it's fairly common in the kickboxing and Muay Thai scene, not very common in the MMA scene. I think Silverback was the only promotion that tried it in Sydney before, and it was interesting because, like, one of the guys that won his fight then couldn't do his second fight because he got cut. And these things happen, and that's probably why we don't see it as much in MMA, but like those things do happen in Muay Thai as well. In terms of like game plan, when you know you got potentially two fights, right? Does that change the way that you fight?
I think it did this time. And it was the first time I'd ever done anything like this, right? So I didn't really know how to approach it. I just knew I had to train freaking hard. And I did. I wanted to cry in training every day. Shout out to Luis Kajaiba. He spent a lot of time on me. We're really fortunate to have Luis from Phuket Fight Club. He's one of the coaches now at SRG, and he poured a lot of time and energy into me. So I will never be able to thank him enough. Because of his training with me during that camp, I was able to do 7 rounds of fucking Muay Thai in one night. No shin guards, no protection. And I went in there really confident. With the first fight, I remember my corner were like, don't think about the second fight yet. We're just going to deal with this fight first. So just focus on winning this fight. And, you know, it's funny when you reflect on how you feel in a fight and then you watch the fight. It's very contrasting. So I actually felt in the fight I was like slow and took a while to like wake up and register what was happening. Like, because my opponent Jordan, her style is like kickboxing, like not really typical Muay Thai style. They don't really clinch as much and they bounce around and in and out. So then I'm used to all my training partners who are Thai style. So I don't really spar that often. So to like, I think first 10 seconds or something, she threw a head kick and a spinning elbow at me, and I was like, okay, right. So I freaking got to switch on now. Like no round one, like tip tap bullshit. So it was good, but then I think I was still like recalibrating through like round 1 and 2. When you watch it, I don't think you can really tell. But a lot of people afterwards, the feedback was like, oh yeah, I think it looked like you were saving yourself. For the second fight. And, you know, luckily I did enough in that fight to get through too. But I definitely, when I watch it, I'm like, man, I could have done more. But I just, I just didn't really wake up, I think, enough in that one.
It's a funny sort of experience, you know, like I see it happen, you know, there are people that get in the cage and it's like, I call it like shark eyes. They're like eyes just sort of go really zoned in. But then like the downside of that is like whatever the corner's calling, they're not listening either.
Yeah,
you know,
true.
like they just get so fixated on the moment, and it's like they can't hear anything, and they're just like they're literally just like they could be underwater and just fighting for their life kind of thing.
Yes.
And then you know, over time when you've gone through that experience a few times, then you then start to switch on your peripherals.
Yeah.
And then you can actually like hear what your corner's saying. And then it's like, okay.
And execute.
Yeah, and try and execute a little bit more. But yeah, it's always interesting when you watch people that go in there for the first time or in their first few fights. Look, it's not everyone because, you know, I think some people just maybe don't build that moment up to be as crazy as it is. And so then they're the ones that like can probably be a little bit calmer, but then you don't want to be so calm that you just, you know, let the person start running it up on the scoreboard because then you got to chase.
Yeah.
Right?
At the end of the day, this is what I've really learnt especially my 2 losses this year. They taught me like, you're there to fight. You're not there to play chess. Like you have to fight and it's a game that you're trying to win. You're trying to score. So you need to remember that you don't have time, especially if it's a 3-round fight. You don't have time to wait for your shot as much. Yeah. So that's a big lesson that I've taken from this year with my 2 losses, because they were losses that were seen as very close, but you know, myself and my corner, we thought we won those fights. So now going into this year, it's like, okay, we need to like put the pedal on the metal even more. Like I need to make it like fucking clear. And especially if you're fighting like, you know, the more maybe the higher up you get in ranks or like the higher the level the opponents are, I'll be fighting overseas, I'll be fighting interstate. It's not always with like a judging system that I'm comfortable with, right? So I have to just make it fucking clear. Yeah.
Like, well, they used to say that a lot in the UFC. You know, to be the champion, you got to beat the champion, right? And so, like, if if it just looks like it was even, well, the edge still goes to the champ because they're the
champ. Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And so you really need to demonstrate that, okay, you've won because of X, Y, and Z, or, you know, whatever the scenario is. And so it's one of those things that, you know, that actually does play mind games on people as well. Like if you're coming up against somebody who might be ranked higher than you and you're thinking that I really need to put a showing on, then sometimes you might open yourself up to get countered really early just because you're chasing it so hard.
Too much, yeah.
Right? So it's a real like there's so much that goes into this sport mentally and combat sports mentally that you like people just don't really think about, you know. And like you know, going back to what you're saying about, you know, when people talking shit, right? They talk shit because they're trying to get into the other person's head. Like, look, granted, there are people that take it way too far. Yeah. Right? But, you know, you just sort of got to understand that that's what it is. At the end of the day, like, whether you're going to the ring or you're going to the cage, the door's going to lock, or, you know, you're in the ring and away you go. Like, you're going to find out.
You're going to find out, yeah. So, and I understand now as fighters, like, you are your own brand. You need to sell. You are a business. And you need to also have something else that you're offering promotions and, you know, offering viewers and offering, you know, the higher the stakes are. So I understand why people have to trash talk and do these things, because you need to sell tickets and you need to make money at the end of the day. If you're a fighter that is like, if you're just quiet and you work hard, unfortunately now the way that the fight game's going, those fighters don't really get opportunities. Yeah. People that, like, you see in boxing heaps, like people that just like to talk but maybe haven't had as much experience or haven't done, like, you know, Commonwealth Games, Olympic Games. Those ones that are just grinding and grinding, they don't get the opportunities that like, well, yeah, like a
we're seeing it with, we're seeing the whole rise of influencer combat sports, right? Yeah. And like, you know, these are people that have been so successful at building an audience and they're trying to translate it to something new. So I guess, you know, when it comes to that, then how do you approach your sort of brand building, and I guess, you know, what influences have sort of influenced you in terms of how you approach that?
I just try, it sounds really cliche, but I don't know how else to explain it. I just try and stay as true to me as I can. I'm not trying to be anyone else. I'm trying to be the best that I can be and fucking improve and just show people, like, if you really love something, if you're really passionate about it and you want to make that your life, do it. Like, do it now. I know it's easier said than done. Like, believe me, it's taken like 7 years to pretty much like rotate everything around my life to facilitate my Muay Thai career. And I'm feeling pretty good about how things are now because I'm able to pursue this almost 100%. So I would just, I don't know, I just want to be genuine. I don't really have anything to prove to anyone. I just want to prove things to myself. So I don't feel a need to talk or like say some, like put other people down or, but I also learnt to like respect myself and not put myself down as much as well. So, you know, if you're fighting someone that's like heaps more experienced and heaps more this and this or higher rank than you, that doesn't mean that they're a better person or a better athlete. Like, you've been matched for a certain reason. So trust that, trust your training, trust your trainers, and believe in yourself to do that, you know, like
that you're not just being fed.
Yeah, well, that does probably happen. A lot of promotions are pretty famous for that, unfortunately, as well. But that going back to Infliction, like that was another thing, because the way that they decided on the 4 women for this tournament was all through social media.
Really?
Yeah. So Infliction said, I think they were like, I don't know how it started, but it was on Instagram. And it was like, okay, we're going to have a 10K all-female 4-woman tournament. What weight division? And then, you know, I've actually been spending a long time. It was a byproduct, but I also have been working hard on it myself, building my Instagram profile. But just sharing what my day is. I don't do anything extra out of my day to make my Instagram like famous or make myself famous, or I don't know. I'm not saying I'm famous. But because of that, I think it really helped, because a lot of people voted for myself and like the 3 other girls. So Bryony, B, and Jordan, you know, had obviously like a good exposure to people that are in the community, and maybe just like your casual Muay Thai fans that don't really know that much, but were just like, oh, I'd love to see these girls go at it and fight for like the highest purse and the biggest competition in Australian female Muay Thai. So, you know, because of the work that we'd all done building our profiles, we were able to have this opportunity, right? As well as like, you know, what we'd actually achieved in our fight career.
Yeah.
So Bryony, like, she's Australian champion. So obviously she would have been one of the first choices for that category. But yeah, it was cool because it was voted a lot by the people. And that's why we were put on there. So
it's weird, isn't it? It's like it's a two-edged sword, social media.
Yeah.
You know, like, and I guess, you know, the one good thing about is that when you're on the way up, it can give you a lot more exposure and allow you to, you know, get in front of a whole bunch of different audiences that you probably never would have had before.
Yeah.
But then also, you know, like if you're not on the way up, like it's pretty nerve-wracking if that's your first experience or your first few experiences and, you know, or you've got losses to show for it. Like it can be pretty hard on your ego.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, ultimately when it comes to, those sorts of followings and things like that, you sort of just got to resign yourself to the idea that as long as you're building it the way that you want to build it, right? Because I think a lot of people get caught up in this idea that, oh, if I can get to this many followers, it's going to mean X, Y, and Z. No. You know, it doesn't. You know, just if you got an account that's got like 100 and something thousand followers, it doesn't mean that you can make any money from it.
No.
Right? It's not like those people are going to, you know, tip you $1 from each person.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
You might have a few that might give you some money, but like the reality is that, most people probably won't give you anything.
It's just people looking at your life.
Yeah.
Just more people looking at your life. I don't know why people care, honestly. I'm very grateful that people do care because it's given me opportunities. But sometimes I'm like, wow, like something that I post that I just posted because I felt it. Like I was just like, oh, this is something I really want to share with whoever wants to engage with me. And then it gets really popular. I'm like, fuck, people care about that. Okay, cool. Like, yeah. The other day I put up the most plain post, like, plain and simple, just black and white or grey, just a few slides about like what it takes in Muay Thai, generally, what it takes to prepare for a fight and what's expected of you. And, you know, like I have so many like pad work videos or like just all these other things that I thought would be more popular, but this just black and white, plain and simple dot points has just like, skyrocketed.
Done really well,
Yeah,
More people are reading it and they're like, oh yeah, they're good points and they're engaging, right?
Because it's something I guess that people can learn. It's not like just a video of someone hitting pads and being like, you know, like how there's so much of that now already. So I don't know how interesting that is.
Yeah, typically like when it comes to socials, like there's only really two forms of content that do well. You're either there to entertain or you're there to educate, right? And typically I feel like the entertainment pieces do a lot better than the education pieces.
Yeah.
Because people just, I think their attention spans are just so limited nowadays, right?
Yeah.
And so most people, when they're scrolling socials, they're doing it when they might have like a minute spare or 2 minutes spare and they're just quickly flicking through and looking at things.
Yeah.
Whereas, you know, like to actually try and educate somebody takes time.
Yep. Yeah. Massively. And Instagram actually shows you on your reels the engagement at what point in the reel. So it's like a lot of the time it'll just be after like 20 seconds, it drops off.
Yep.
Like no one cares anymore. So anyone making reels, I guess, don't invest too much time. No longer than 30 seconds and then you can go on with your day, okay? Don't invest too much in this stuff. Because it's just like, I don't know, for me, I share these things because it's what I love. It's what I'm really passionate about. And I just want to give an inside for anyone that cares. And it's okay if you don't care. I don't blame you at all for not caring. But if for anyone that does care, this is just like a snapshot of what my life looks like and how I have to live to pursue what I'm dreaming about achieving. Pretty much, in a nutshell, that's what it is.
Yeah. So then when it comes to like balancing your life around trying to be a professional fighter, right? So can we just talk about that? Like, I guess, you know, you went to Lacoste head office or you went to the head office and then you decided, I just want to go back to retail. And so then have you found like a good balance there now, just doing the retail aspect of it and then being able to like align the rest of your timetable around that?
Yeah. I mean, it's never not hard. You know, Lacoste is like, it's a good job for me in terms of like, I can go, there is no level of stress really. I really like the brand. I love the clothing. I like the people that I work with. My boss is really nice to me. You know, or
Are they scared of you?
Maybe. Maybe, I don't know. You know, so, and that's also a way that like Muay Thai doesn't consume every part of my day as well. I don't want Muay Thai to be everything like in my day, 7 days a week, because it pretty much is. So yeah, I have Lacoste, which is like my time that I can kind of switch off and be just like normal. Yeah. And then the people that I work with, the people I interact with there, they know nothing about this combat sport world. And it's kind of nice. And I can like focus on my other interests. And then, luckily those hours just happen to work with my training because I train early morning and then I train in the evening.
Yep.
But, as I've gotten older, like, it's not a physical job, but standing up like 9 hours a day when you've had to do like running 2 hours of Muay Thai, stand for 8 hours and then go back and do more running, more Muay Thai, more S&C, whatever, it does take its toll. So that's kind of where I'm at now is I'm like, okay, this has worked previously for a few years, but now I need to start thinking of, preserving my career because I can't just keep going the same. I want my career to grow in Muay Thai. I don't want to just keep doing the same thing. So, yeah.
So then it's like, you got to look at that balance and then go, okay, do I need to cut back some hours there and look at how you support yourself and make it on the way through, right?
Yes. And I mean, in the last few years, because of the exposure I've gotten as a fighter, it's been really good So I studied personal training as well. So I do focus on personal training with Muay Thai. That's my other passion, like not fighting. If I'm not fighting, I'm so passionate about teaching others about Muay Thai, whether they want to fight or not. I just love sharing what I love with people that want to learn. So, but then again, in fight camp, that's a really physical job, holding pads for people.
Yeah.
I can't do that. When I have really big high stakes fights now, which is a lot of them is what they're becoming, I have to dial down on those so then I earn less money. I earn less money at Lacoste when I want to rest my legs as well and reduce like in fight camp. So usually that's kind of the trade-off. Every time I fight, okay, you get paid to fight. Then you have like a few days off to recover. And then you're just like hustling to make money back now from all the money you've lost in fight camp. Yeah. Because Muay Thai, I mean, infliction, that was great. We had a big purse to fight for, and it is getting better in Muay Thai, but it's not enough what you get paid in a fight to like quit your day job. Yeah.
And I guess when it comes to that aspect of it, right, like, are there promotions that are really focused on the females in the sport that you want to talk about? Or
in Australia, Muay Thai League. So what I mentioned earlier, like I was on their first all-female card. So that's operated by Nakia Wright and her partner Benji in Queensland. So so they do shows for male and female, but then once a year they have the all-female card, which is usually the first show of the year.
Yep.
And I've been on, now this is the third year in a row. So it's been like such a cool way to start the year every year. It's just like
hit the ground running over the Christmas season. Okay, have a bit of fun, but I've already got like a goal to work towards in Jan or Feb. And I mean, I guess they could say, I'm not trying to say like, wow, look at me, I'm so great. But like, I think I started on that show as an amateur with zero confidence. And then now I'm fighting for like a pretty prestigious WBC belt against number one WBC ranked in the world. Just in 3 years because of, I think, the constant exposure I've had and work we've put in. But Muay Thai League, specifically the all-female card, that was what helped give me confidence, I guess, to like push and like try and achieve more. Yep.
And it inspired me to also help females in my state.
Yeah.
And do, I work with some other girls in other fighters where we're now trying to like build the female scene and make them confident and make them realize, like, I think, what am I trying to say? When you want to do something, or if you're inspired to do something, it's hard to do that if you don't have an example of that. So if you don't see, like, female fighters doing really well, you're going to think, like, oh, yeah, like, fighting for females is probably not a good option. Yeah. I'll just do it to train. But if we can create a space where like all these women are like killing it and like winning really prestigious belts and making bank and like helping each other too, not like bringing each other down, even though you're from different gyms and different states and whatever, but you're helping each other just for the sake of growing the sport on a macro level. Imagine like in 5 years' time what the growth could be for that. Yeah. And maybe females will be making the same as men.
So, because you guys did was it a development day, that one? The female?
So we did two. Myself, B, Yolanda Schmidt, Casey, and Gabrielle Durama. So we're all Muay Thai fighters. And it started because the participation in New South Wales specifically, like female Muay Thai, is just like abysmal. That was actually a big reason I went pro, is because as an amateur I was just struggling to always get fights.
Really? Okay.
But then with pro there's like a bit of money at least involved, and you know, I guess the preps athletes take it a bit more seriously. So if they say yes to a fight, they'll be there. They'll rock up. So that was the only reason I actually went pro.
Okay.
Because I was sick of not getting fights, not because I actually thought I was ready or wanted to go pro at all. But yeah, so
that's not a bad thing. Like I always, and the reason why I say that is because like a lot of the times when we're seeing in the MMA scene, especially like when the amateurs are coming through, like this person might be debuting, but they've had like 10 kickboxing fights, they've competed in like 20 jiu-jitsu tournaments.
Yep.
Like they're coming in with this whole host of experience, and it's like, okay, you know, like you look at the rules. Like if it's, so I guess typically in MMA we have like A, B, and C. So A would be professional class. B is like semi-pro. So the only thing that's missing in B class rules is like no elbows.
Okay.
And no rotational leg locks.
Okay.
Right? Like it's like, so it's practically, you know, nearly pro rules. And then when you go to C class competition, then it's like you got to wear shinnies. And then it might be like no hits to the head of a grounded opponent. So no ground and pound to the face when you're on the ground.
Okay, I didn't know that. Right.
So yeah, but like sometimes, yeah, you go to these events and the level can be so high for people that are just starting, right? And then, you know, you're expected to maybe do between 5 and 10 amateur fights by the time before you turn pro in the MMA scene. And like, yeah, 5 to 10 MMA fights could be a lot of damage depending on how you fight.
Yes.
Right? Like depends on your style.
Yes.
So depending on where the person's at, if they do have that whole host of experience, then sometimes it's actually better for them to try and turn pro early. And then it's about, okay, can they sell tickets? Can they, you know, do they have the other aspect of it? Because, you know, there are plenty of good fighters that probably don't care enough about that aspect. And it's not to say that they have to care. I think if you don't care about that aspect, then you need to have people around you that can help you with that.
True.
Whereas if, you know, you are inclined to actually care about that aspect and you don't mind playing with that sort of stuff, then by all means do it yourself. But yeah, just understand like, your ability to drive eyeballs will sort of determine your ability to make bank.
Yes.
So
yeah.
And
sometimes you see a big gap also with like people going pro too soon against someone that's pretty seasoned, and it's just like, oh God, what did I just witness? Like a murder, pretty much.
Butchery.
Yeah, sometimes. But so we were just like so fed up with like, what the hell? I know so many girls that are really good and could fight, but they just don't have the confidence. So what can we do to give them the confidence? So, okay, we like B came up with the idea of creating a committee of us, like kind of just like 4 or 5, I guess, women in Muay Thai in New South Wales. It was pretty much just a sparring day, like all the girls who get together. Because most of us, in most of our gyms, there's only like maybe a handful of girls that you actually get to spar.
Yep.
You never actually get to rock up and there's, or there's no girls. So we're just like, let's just make it an all-female environment and see how that feels. Yeah. And then we had pre-matched bouts. So like there's no record, but I guess you could call it like an interclub. So we would, so give us your weight, like the weight that you'd rather fight at and your experience level. And we just want to facilitate and make it feel like a fight. So you can have a taste of what an amateur fight would be like, and maybe now you can see yourself potentially doing that.
Yep.
So yeah, the main thing of it was just to break barriers between gyms, I think, and then just grow, give these girls confidence. Because I don't know why, but females always think that they're not ready yet. When I've like, that's a really big blanket statement, I know, but in my experience with the girls that I train with or girls that I PT, like they're so good, technically amazing, like clean, sharp, strong, but in their mind they don't believe, they're always thinking they're not ready yet. And I was that girl too, so I understand that way of thinking. So I want to find a way to nurture that and flip that and make them see that you're actually really ready and you're actually 10 times better than I was for my first freaking 5 amateur fights. Like your first fight is already better than my 5th, 6th, 7th amateur fight, just FYI.
So how many girls turned up to that, just out of curiosity?
Oh man, no. So we had to have like an online registration. We didn't realize it was going to be so huge, but we did a lot of work like promoting it and like teasing and like just getting feelers out. I did a lot of like reels, asking questions to like the female Muay Thai community, just like, you know, how do you feel intimidated to spar? Do you feel like you want to fight, but you don't know why? Or what's the reason why you haven't fought yet, but you want to? Just little things like that to get an idea of what we can do in this space to help them feel better. But yeah, so it was a registration, and I think it booked out within 3 days. We didn't expect that. It was like 100 people or 80 people, and we wanted more, but unfortunately, just because of the space, we wanted safety to be a big thing, and we're like, fuck, we can't, like, imagine 100, 200 girls just going at it, like sparring each other. I can't be liable for any injuries, like concussions.
Did they all have to sign the waiver when they came in? Or
so I'm pretty sure the online form had some sort of waiver.
We hope.
Yeah, pretty sure. That was B's. B was in charge of all that stuff. I'm just the one that talks to people. B does all makes everything, diplomatic.
Yeah, proper.
Proper, yeah. And then the second one booked out within a day, like within the first hour.
Wow.
80 girls again. So it's good when you have these things, because now we're realizing, okay, there's just so many girls that want to do this. They love it. So now we're realizing, okay, we need to have more than 2 a year.
Yep.
And maybe when we do that, we can have it in smaller groups so that it doesn't just fully book out.
Yep.
And then like after the first one, a few of the girls ended up having their first amateur fights.
Hey.
And then so I'm really interested to see in another year's time, like, are these girls going to go pro?
Yep.
Are they going to like start becoming trainers and helping other girls and guys? Like I know I'm a big advocate for female Muay Thai, but I just want growth for everyone, like males and females. But it's just, I guess right now I'm feeling more connected to growing the female scene.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's good. Like, I think ultimately, if you can have, like, say, maybe you do one a quarter or something like that.
Yeah, I think that's better.
And then that way it's also an opportunity for businesses and sponsors to probably come on board.
Yeah.
Because now you've got like a pretty specific niche.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And so if people, wanted to get on board and sponsor these kinds of events, well, you've got a pretty good chance of like converting people into being advocates for your brand, provided it's relevant, right? Like I'm not talking about like a brand that, is selling something totally off piece.
Yes.
But if it's relevant to that space, then like it could be whether it's gear or it's, all that sort of stuff. There's so many things that I guess athletes are always looking for. They're always looking for the coolest shorts.
Yeah. Or anything that can, like, Lewis, my head coach, like, he said something really good to me. We had a chat when I started to go pro about sponsors and stuff.
Yep.
And he's like, well, people will come to you and offer you things, the like more popular you get, but just think about what's the things that you spend money on the most.
Yeah. What would you actually use?
Yeah. Food, like recovery. So physio, maybe massage, like, and then like clothing, like gear, like pretty much as a fighter, those are the main things that you spend your money on.
Yeah.
So just think about that stuff. I remember, man, I was just scrambling so much, like trying to make ends meet to pay for all these things,
Yeah.
And it's funny because when you're actually the most broke and not making money as a fighter, that's when you're having to invest in all these things. But it's worth it in the end. If you like go 100% at it and invest your time and energy into it, it is worth investing in all these things, obviously. But that was funny with the last one, because the last female sparring day, because like B and I, obviously we were preparing for infliction at the same time. So we're like having to work together. We're good friends, but then we're also like, okay, soon we have to switch on to, we might be fighting each other.
Yeah.
We might be like, that might be us two in the final and we have to kill each other. So it was a cool, I think not many sports you can do that, where you have to work as a team with someone who is potentially going to be your opponent as well.
But I think that's also a very Western thing, because I think, typically like the Thais, they're all like warming up in the same room, they're getting their hands wrapped in the same room. No one cares.
Nah,
right?
No one cares.
And like it's literally just, I guess some people might just view it, depending on where they're at in their career. Some of them might be just doing it for a payday. But like there's no real like animosity that comes into it.
No way.
Whereas I feel like, the way that a lot of people feel about it in Australia anyway is like, oh yeah, that's the enemy team.
The opposition.
And like, I think you can have a fight and still be actually, very good friends with somebody.
Yes.
You can even fight a friend and still, be good friends with them after.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I just find that to be really interesting. And like, I always find like, you know, when people have to like work themselves up to like hate this other person, it's like, you don't need to hate them to hurt them.
No.
You can just hurt them.
And that's what, for me personally, that's why I say it's never about them.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter who's in front of you. It's about you. Like at the end of the day, you have to beat whatever bullshit you're telling yourself in your head to get in your way of winning against this person.
Yeah.
Because you can't control what they're going to do. Yeah. I don't know if she's going to do a fucking spinning elbow to my face or if she's just going to chill and wait or I don't know what she's going to do and I can't control what she's going to do. So what I can control is what I'm doing and how I'm reacting to things.
Is there, when it comes to you fighting, is there a specific moment where you switch on? So like as an example, when you're at the back and you're warming up and you're doing those sorts of things, like are you a relaxed person out there or are you already starting to get very high strung? And or like, is there a particular moment? Like for me, I feel like the moment when I switch, where I switch on is like when it's about to happen. Up until that point, like I could be asleep.
Really? No, definitely not asleep for me. When I rock up to the venue, when you're in the car and then you get to the venue, that's when the butterflies come. It's like, okay, we're here. Okay. A really good tip that I got taught by my mental coach, Mark, was like, you just have to focus on each step now. So when you rock up, don't think about when am I fighting? I have to get into the ring at this time. No, you need to get out of the car. You need to get all your gear. You need to suss out where you are in the back room. You need to do your warm up, stretching, massage. After that, what's the next step? Like each little step until I get to the ring.
Yeah.
And then when I get into the ring, pretty much when I'm doing, for those of you that don't know, because I know this isn't just a Muay Thai podcast, like we do Waikru, so it's our dance that we do to like pay respect to our trainers and to the sport. It's really, really symbolic for me. So when I'm doing that, that's when I switch on. It's kind of like a little warm up or like a little meditation before you fight. So I love to do that. And then that's when I'm like, all right, there's nothing left that I can do at all to prepare. Like I cannot like stretch this out any longer. So, all right, it's just me and her and now I have to just do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then when it comes to Waikru, right, like is there, I guess there's different styles of it. Is there a particular style that you resonate to, or I guess who's informed your Waikru and how you perform it?
So my one is actually different to everyone at SRG because I had one already before I moved there.
Yep.
So at SRG, Xing, who is one of the head trainers, he teaches the fighters the Waikru. So they have their own one. And I really appreciate they've actually never pressured me or brought up like me having to learn their one because mine comes from, my first trainers.
Yep. And
I guess because I couldn't train with them anymore or fight with them anymore, this is still my way of like showing my love. Yeah, because they made me fall in love with this sport and they still support me a lot to this day. So that's kind of my way of like, I'm never going to be with them again in that space of them being my corner, but you're still in the ring with me kind of thing. And just to show my love for this sport, like, that's how I do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I'm still also paying respect to, obviously, even though it's not the dance that I learned at SRG, I'm still paying respect to my trainers at SRG by doing it.
Yeah.
In my mind, anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure they see it the same way.
I hope so. Hopefully.
All right. I'm a little bit curious about low points for you.
Okay.
Right. So, because I guess a lot of people, face low points throughout their life, right? And so you had mentioned there was that time when, you were thinking, I'm going to take a break from the sport.
Yeah.
Have there been other low points for you?
Oh my God, every week?
Yeah.
This journey is so, because you have to commit 110% of yourself. You can't commit to a fight or a fight camp and just go 80%. You need to like fully commit. So because you're giving so much of yourself to this, I feel it also takes a lot from you at certain times too, right? So there'll be some weeks where I feel amazing and I'm like really confident about things. And then some weeks I just break down.
Yeah.
As I mentioned, this infliction fight camp, I just broke myself over and over and over again. On reflection, now I'm like, well, that was just me leveling up.
Yeah.
Not like, I'm not trying to sound like I was gaslighting myself, but I during that time I was really, really I just was killing myself and trying to do the best that I could. And then when you're feeling low, when you're depleted, when you're tired, when you're sore, everything else in your life affects you more. Like you're more emotional and you get annoyed at things that you wouldn't normally, or you get, you cry just at things that you wouldn't normally cry about. But at the end of the day, I know that when you have these really tough days, it's because you're getting better or you're learning a really valuable lesson. It's not for nothing, but you just can't dwell on it. That's the only thing. Like any emotion, anger, happiness, sadness, nerves, let it happen, but don't like hold on to it.
Yeah, don't let it control you. So then does that mindset come from Mark, or is that something that's more like, growing up a little bit Buddhist?
Maybe that too, without realizing it. Yeah, a bit Buddhist, but yeah, I think mostly Mark.
Okay.
He's had some really good advice for me. This last one that was like, on fight day, if you're feeling good, don't trust it. If you're feeling bad, don't trust it. So just whatever you're feeling, deal with. Let it happen. Don't try and deny whatever the feeling is, but just at the end of the day, you know what you have to do. You have a job to do.
Yeah.
Regardless of how you feel. You have to go in there and you have to perform. So don't, like what you said, don't let what you feel control you or dictate. Yeah.
So then I guess switching gears a little bit here when it comes to like spirituality and religion and that sort of stuff, like what do you sort of think at the moment? Do you have any beliefs?
I gravitate definitely more towards Buddhism, but I wouldn't say I'm a devout Buddhist or not. Like I still have a lot I need to educate myself about it, but I grew up going to the temple with my mum a lot. I don't go as much now here as I wish I did, so that's something I want to do more and be more involved with. I just like the Buddhist like way of life. It's pretty, most religions, except some of the crazy ones, their core beliefs are just don't be an asshole to other people, right?
Yeah.
That's pretty much it. But I believe that you believe whatever you want, but don't push it onto other people. Yeah, just don't you're not the same as me. I'm not the same as you. We haven't had the same upbringing. So I can't expect you to have the same beliefs or thoughts as me.
Yeah.
Everything that works for me may not work for you.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to force you to agree with my belief system.
Yeah. Well, I always think it's an individual's journey.
Yes.
Right? Just like fighting, just like a lot of things in life, right? Like you go through these different checkpoints along the way. And for some people, and I was having this conversation with someone just the other day, and it was like, until you've found success at something, you'll always be chasing to be successful at something, right? And then once, it doesn't matter what it is, if it's work, if it's fighting, you name it, like if that's whatever you want to apply yourself to, but until you've achieved a level of success that you would build up in your mind as like, when I get to here, I've made it, right? And everybody would have that about, something where it's like, when I bought a house when it's this or when it's that, like you build this moment up in your mind that, okay, when I get to this point, if I get to the UFC, then I've made it. And then when you actually get there and you're like, hang on a second, like this didn't really change my life one bit, right?
Yes.
Then that's like the first checkpoint I would say for anybody that's like growing up and chasing success, because I know for me, I was at a point when I was young, like I valued success over anything, right? Like I wanted to be successful. And
what was success in your mind when you were young though? What was that?
So
that you were chasing?
Yeah, so like I was so I'll try and tell the concise version of the story, but essentially like my parents were going through a tough time when I finished high school. And so I sent my mum overseas to like thinking that would help her and like spend time with family and things like that. And I had a fractured relationship with my dad, and my brother had moved out. So I was basically home alone. And so I started working. So I worked as an apprentice mechanic. So I worked at a Toyota dealership whilst I was studying, whilst I was still training. Right. And like for that four odd years of my life, well, they were like some of like the hardest times of my life. Yeah.
I bet,
I'm supposed to be working a 38-hour week. Work was pretty good. Like I had a good boss. I told him that I would cut my uni to part-time. I didn't. And I just didn't turn up to, majority of my classes. Still passed.
Wow.
And so I was working a lot, obviously trying to get through my apprenticeship. I was at TAFE 1 day a week, and then at nights I would either, the reason why I didn't go to uni as much is because at nights I'd prefer to train as opposed to go to uni.
Okay, gotcha. I thought you were going to say like catch up on sleep, but no, train. Okay.
No, yeah. So and that was my life for, 4.5 odd years. And then, when I finished my apprenticeship, I'd finished my uni degree, and the boss that I had at that Toyota dealership was really good to me, and he got me a job at Toyota head office. And so then I went to Toyota head office and spent 5 years there. And then I I guess in my head, I'd sort of built up, when I've made it, I will be like the dealer principal of a car dealership. That was what I was chasing. So then I spent 5 years at Toyota head office, then left there and went to a company that ran a whole bunch of different dealerships. At the time, it was called AHG, Automotive Holdings Group. They're now been bought out by Eagers, another dealership group. And I worked for them in like what they called an operations executive capacity for 8 months, which is kind of like an area manager type role. And then after that 8 months, then one of the dealer principals that they had hired for a business resigned. And I had a boss who believed in me, and he said, Johnny, this is what you've always wanted. Here you go. You do well and it's yours.
Yeah.
And so it was like everything that I thought I wanted, right? And here I was at 28 and I was thinking, it'll be good if I get there in 4 years, but now I've got the opportunity already. Here. It's already here, right? And I was like, this is going to change my life. Like this is what I've been building up for. And so I started there, and it's a lot of work, right? And like I work like 7 months straight, 7 days a week, and still training and like trying to fit everything else in. And yeah, like I sort of, I got a bit lost, right? Because like I think, and I would always say when it came to me as a person, right? Like I don't think I was a good manager back then. I was still junior as a dealer principal. And I think, the way I sort of conducted myself was probably like, I'm in this capacity because I'm good. Right? It's because of me that I got this capacity. And what I realized, I was with that business for 4 years before I moved on. But at the end of that 4 years, I was burnt out.
Yeah.
Because I'd made it hollow. Like I really like turned it into like, it was transactional. And like I would view like a car as it might as well just be a skateboard with a briefcase of cash on it. And I'm just trying to trade one skateboard for a bigger skateboard with more money in it. Right? And so it became really hollow for me, and I was like, why am I doing this?
Yeah. This thing that you'd built up in your head that was like
thought it was going to change my life.
Goal,
right? And like, you could probably look at that and go, wow, like you're a really selfish prick because, like you're making such good money and you're complaining about the life that you have.
But there's so much that comes with that. It's not that simple as just getting a lot of money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then, then I got married, so I put in to take a bit of time off. So I took 6 months off and had to sort of like reevaluate, where I was at. And at the time I was thinking, do I go back to the automotive industry or am I done at this point in time? Right. And I decided to go back, and then I went to another dealership, and I changed brands. So I went to a Mercedes-Benz dealership, and what actually happened when I was there, it sort of redeveloped a bit of love for the industry for me because I was really focused on my customers and like focused on delivering, happy customers and having good outcomes.
Yeah.
And so, we did really well in that business, and I spent 5 years there. And when I left there, it was because the owners had decided to sell that business, and I was a little bit disappointed that they didn't give me an opportunity to buy it. But I understand from their perspective as well, because like I only wanted to buy the brand that I was at. They had other brands.
Okay, right.
So they wanted to sell the whole lot.
The whole thing.
Yeah. So then, I left there, and then I went to a BMW business then, and a bit of the same thing. Like by reigniting my love for the industry, like I feel like I leveled up as an operator as well. I became a better person to work for.
Right.
And like I was really invested in my people. And so then that was what I carried into the next business, and I was really focused on growing people.
Yeah.
And so that became like the next thing that I was like really passionate about. But even then, like I still got to this point where I'd be driving home on the M5 and like, here I am like in a BMW M3 and I'd be like, God, thanks for like, everything that I've got. Like I've got a pretty good life. Don't get me wrong. But is there something more that I'm supposed to be doing?
Right.
Right. And so, and I'd be like, probably like maybe like a year and a half in, I'd be like asking myself that question almost daily. Is there something else? Is there something else? Is there something else? Is there something else? And it's like, again, same thing, right? Like, people would say you're so ungrateful. You've got like one of the best jobs in the world.
Yeah.
You drive new cars all the time.
Yeah. Financially stable.
Stable, all this sort of stuff. And like, here I am asking, is there more to life than this? Right. And yeah, there is.
There is.
Yeah.
And it's like
money isn't the be all and end all.
You obviously weren't doing what was fueling, your passion or whatever it was you felt.
Yeah.
That you needed or, yeah.
Yeah. And like I guess what it was at the end of the day is that when you have, like for me, I was having kids and so watching them grow up and, putting in all these hours at a business that if you're not like feeling like you should be there like the entire time, it becomes difficult because and part of what COVID taught people was like how much they were missing out.
Yes.
Right. Like here we are now, we're getting this opportunity to spend more time at home because we're all locked down and whatever else. And that, helped me to reframe a lot of things. I actually like saw how much I missed with the kids.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, yeah, like I need to make some changes. And then rightly or wrongly, I lost my job anyway because I got made redundant.
So that was maybe the universe saying, hey.
That's, and that's how I look at it, right?
Yeah.
Because, everybody had choices to make and I made my choices and I didn't really appreciate the fact that, I was getting told that I had to tell people, you have to make this choice or you're going to lose your job. And I let it be known. And I guess some businesses, they don't want somebody who's going to speak their mind.
Yeah.
And so then, so I got made redundant and then, went through all the emotions of having been in an industry for 17 years.
Grief, is it 7 stages of grief or whatever it is? Yeah.
And it's like, who am I? Like I'm no longer this person that was this. And so, that was interesting because I feel like that was another checkpoint in my life where you start to realize that
you're not what you do.
You're not what you do. But like, isn't it funny that in society, the first question we generally ask somebody is like,
what do you do?
What do you do for work?
Yeah, I know. It's crazy.
It's crazy.
It's crazy.
But like I guess it makes it's an easier question to ask than, what have you been through in life?
Yeah.
right.
Or what are your core values?
Yeah.
Like
it's a pretty weird way to open a conversation, right? But funnily enough, like, every time I get into like where it's an Uber or a taxi, like I get like the craziest stories out of people. And I guess I can thank the podcast for that because like I don't really like resonate with small talk anymore. I like to like really get into like nitty gritty conversations.
Yeah. I remember I got into an Uber once and it was like, again, divine intervention or whatever you want to call it. I think it was before a fight. I don't know what the fight was. Maybe it was before my first national title. And I was just like, kind of doubting myself. And then this Uber driver, I don't know who sent him to me, but I really needed him. And he was talking about how he used to coach his daughter in athletics or something. And then we started talking, because he was dropping me off to the gym. So he was like, do you train? What do you do? And then I talked about, I'm preparing for this fight. And maybe he could see like the nerves or just the concern in my face. And then like he looked in his rearview mirror, like right at me. I was sitting in the back seat and made eye contact with me and was like, you can do whatever you want to do. You can do don't limit yourself. Believe in yourself. Trust me, you can do whatever you want to do. And I was like about to cry and just like kiss him, hug him and cry at him all at the same time. Because I was like, fucking hell, I really needed that. Whoever sent this Uber driver to me, thank you so much.
There you go.
And it's funny. I'm a big believer in just the universe sending us little signs, whether we choose to read or pay attention to them or not.
Yeah. It's a different story. But
there's always things trying to be shown to us.
Yeah.
But depending on where we are in our lives, if maybe we don't pay attention to them. But going back to like, I think we were talking about, when people have this goal, like when I reach this goal, I'll be happy. I remember Gypsy King saying pretty much each time he won his titles, he had depression after. Because like, okay, you've reached this, now what? Like, what's the next goal? What's the next way of like valuing myself, I guess. Yeah.
Because it's a distraction. What it is that you by chasing these goals, right, you're distracting yourself from actually doing the work of just sitting there with yourself and actually go, do I actually like myself? Right? Because
guilty, yes.
Yeah. Like
back-to-back fight camps for 3 years.
Yeah. When you're a kid, you've got your parents, you've got your siblings if you're lucky to have siblings. And then as you grow older, you've got your friends, right? And these people are always around you. And then a lot of the times when you move out, then what happens is that there's two things that can happen. Either you become a massive introvert and you spend all your time at home and you don't want to go out and you spend a lot of time like working on yourself or hating yourself, or you get distracted and you go out and party all the time because that's easier than spending time at home because it's like, it's boring.
Yeah.
Right?
And then reflecting and having to actually look.
So, like that's the trap is that the goals are always going to be there.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like, for Tyson Fury, it's like chasing that next title and that next title and the next title. But after you've achieved that goal, it's like, okay, now what?
Yeah.
And now you actually have to sit there and go, you can have the most amazing achievements in the world. But if you don't actually have like some love for yourself, it doesn't mean anything.
No.
Right. And like I was telling you before, part of the reason why I started the podcast, I had this, one of my best mates from high school, 99.95 in the HSC. Top-notch, smart guy, like absolute brain. And, for whatever reason, he decides to commit suicide. And look, I've read into it a lot more, and I think a part of that is obviously, the lack of relationship with his biological mum. Like when we were in high school, he would tell me that she was dead. But then I found out when we were in uni that like, oh, she's alive, and then he's trying to reconnect with her and all this sort of stuff.
Wow.
And so like I feel like a lot of the things that he did, he was always trying to prove to himself to be worthy of somebody's love. Yeah. Right? And that's it's really sad when I think about it because, like as a mate, obviously, all of us as mates, we loved him.
Yeah.
But he didn't love himself. Like he let that define his life. And unfortunately there's people in the world that go through those things and they don't come out the other side. But I guess, there are also people that, might see how that impacted him, and then they might be able to come out the other side and have a positive impact, right? Like, so, I'm always really big on this idea of infinity, that, there's so many possibilities in this universe that there is a version of the universe where he lives, Yeah. And so unfortunately it's not this one, but there is a version out there where he did find happiness, or he did find the right things. Yeah. And so I use that to influence my own decisions in terms of, okay, so what kind of a person do I want to be? Because, everybody has bad thoughts, and they want to do bad things or whatever, Yeah. And so it's like I use that to inform myself, and it's like, okay, there's a version of me out there that's probably done that bad thing, and I don't need to be that person. I can be better than that.
That's a good way to think about that. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I guess to switch gears a bit, and one last topic before we sort of wrap up, but I'm always curious about, as a female athlete, like, do you get many haters? And I guess the second part of that question is, when it comes to you thinking about being a female as well, like, how do you balance that in terms of like, do you feel pressure? Like, do people pressure you like to have kids and all this sort of stuff? And I'm just curious about that aspect of it.
Well, I think I'm pretty fortunate that I have reached this part in my career where I'm getting more exposure than I have ever before. I'm in my 30s. Like, I already know who I am. I've spent time working on that, and I've lived, like, I've done a lot of stuff that I already wanted to do before having to pretty much give up a social life, give up traveling, give up, the, I guess you could say, fun stuff. So I already know who I am. So when someone, if there is, touch wood, I don't know, I haven't experienced too much hate, and when I have, it's just funny to me. Yeah. Because down to my core, I know who I am, and I feel all the love and support of the people that I choose to have around me. So it doesn't really affect me, honestly. And I think like what you are to your core, what you show, the way you conduct yourself, people will gravitate towards that. People that are similar to that will gravitate towards that. So because I pursue what I love, and I think I'm showing that I love it so much and I care about it so much, the people that gravitate towards me tend to be like that too. Yeah. So I feel I have a lot of positivity. Yeah. Yeah. So I think it would be harder if I did this at 23 or 21. I don't think I would be able to deal with like kind of the attention or whatever, the pressure, whatever you want to call it as well. Not saying that I'm dealing with it well now. Like there are days where I just feel like, oh fuck, like I have to remember people are watching now. Like, maybe there's like a 10-year-old girl who's like watching how I react to a hard situation in sparring, or people are paying more attention now. So that is something that does affect. I have to be more mindful of. So there are days where the pressure gets to me in terms of that, like knowing that people look up to me. And I'm not trying to say people look up to me because I'm like this fucking, I don't know, beacon of whatever, or I'm better than anyone, but I do have people that come up to me and come to me for advice. Yep. So that's just something I guess I'm learning to balance, and also remind yourself that you're not, I don't know the right way, like you're not all that. Just because you're successful or just because you're getting a lot of attention doesn't mean you're better than anyone. Yeah. 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 But also it doesn't mean you should put yourself down. Yeah. Yeah. So that's just like a constant battle, honestly, every day, every week, and learning to balance that. And
then do you have to does it go through your mind in terms of being a female athlete, like, the biology of obviously being female, like does that go through your mind at all?
Yeah, when I first decided to do this, which I guess was like, as in do this 110% and pursue fighting, I was like, okay, I don't know where I came with 5 years, but I guess I was about 30. So I was like, okay, I think my body will still be okay for 5 years.
Yep.
Like I can do this. I can put my body through this for 5 years. So, you know, maybe, I don't know, maybe men, I'm not a man, so I don't know, but like maybe men don't have that added pressure. Maybe they could still push it past 35, depending on the circumstances in their life. But if you want to have a kid and you're a female, yeah. I still am undecided if I want a kid or not. So I'm kind of still just like
on the fence.
Yeah, I'm like, but I just want my body to still be able to do this as long as I can.
Yeah.
I don't want to be like accepting fights just because I need a paycheck.
Yeah.
But my body's like crumpled. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Yeah. So I guess in terms of that, in terms of being a female, my biological clock or whatever, I'm not thinking about having a baby and that's what's defining my career. It's just how long can my body still feel strong and still recover?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the miles on the clock is a really important thing because if you're sparring hard all the time, like it's going to have an impact on your career.
Yes.
Right? And then likewise, if you're not sparring hard enough, then at the same time you're not getting the intensity that you need to actually
to be
perform.
prepared.
Yeah. So yeah, it's a really interesting one because I think nowadays people are getting more professional in terms of how they approach it. That means like they're disciplined in terms of their sleep, they're disciplined in terms of their nutrition. There's so many factors that can go into it.
Yes.
But in terms of, I always think it's a lot easier to maintain than it is to try and get back something that you've lost.
True.
So like a lot of the times when people do become parents, they come out of shape. Like they lose their shape a lot.
Yeah.
Because they're so invested in their kids or whatever else that it becomes like really difficult to actually get back on track.
Yeah.
And even like, a lot of people when they finish school and they never do any sport, they go into a workplace and they sit at a desk like you hated.
Yeah.
Right? and you sit at the desk and you, as you said, like, you were drinking, you were smoking.
Yeah.
You're snacking
Very
all the time.
stationary lifestyle. Yeah.
Right? And it shows in your body, right?
Yeah.
And so you got to make that choice of like, is that actually how I want to be? Because like what you actually do defines how you will end up the shape that you be, right?
And I always admire people that like, okay, maybe you're over 40 now, you've got kids, but then they still, fighting might not be an option for you anymore, but like, like yourself, you're still.
I'm almost 40 next
month.
Are you? Yeah.
I thought we were like maybe the same age. But you talked about like 5 years here, 5 years there. So I was trying to do the math in my head. But I admire people who have so much on their plate, and obviously you have to give up a lot of your life to your loved ones.
Yeah.
But then you're still, for yourself, committing like 3-4 days to maintain, as you were saying.
Yeah.
Like, because that will make you a better person for yourself, make you better for your family and your loved, like just nicer to be around as well.
Yeah.
And enrich your life, right?
It's longevity, right? Like, one of the things that I'm very big on is the whole, epigenetics thing. Like typically when you see parents that are bigger, their children will be bigger.
Yeah, because that's what they see.
Some of those traits pass on.
Yeah.
In the DNA or whatever the case you want to call it. So, yeah, like I think it's going to be interesting for me watching my kids grow because, like, they're like I know that with my so oversharing here. But
go for it.
My fourth child, so I got 4, right?
Yep.
So Talia, she was actually conceived right after my last fight.
Wow.
Yeah.
Big celebration.
Right?
How good. Yeah.
So it's one of those things, so massive overshare. But
I'm so honoured that this is the podcast. So on her birthday, please play that like 10-second clip on her 18th birthday.
Well, I'm curious to see, like, is she going to be like the one that's going to be in the best like physical condition, right? Because
because of the circumstance. Okay.
Yeah. Because I was in like, I suppose like I would have been at the peak of my physical condition, right?
Yeah, right.
Like, and it's not like I've lapsed too much, but like, it's different when you're preparing for something, right?
Yes.
As know, like, weigh-in day, fight day, you're going to be in the best physical position that you can possibly be in.
Yes.
So yeah, I'm just curious about that. Like, it's funny, my third one, Eden, like, she's got this massive flexibility and strength where like, she was in the shower the other day and she was washing her feet, right? But then she like lifts her leg up in the air to wash her foot. And my wife and I just started cracking up because it's like, you're a massive show off. Like,
yeah. You could just bend over, but
instead you just like put
your
foot up in the air to wash it under the water. So yeah, it's just interesting, to see what sort of traits pass on to them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the thing. It's like, well, it's not possible to just keep having kids constantly. But it's like, so if I have like a 5th one, a 6th one, what's it gonna?
There's so many iterations, right?
Yeah. How are they gonna look? Like what trait? Like, do your kids? Do do they look like you, or each of them are different?
They're each a little bit different. I would say the first two look more like mum, and the second two look more like me.
Okay.
But yeah, obviously the baby's still growing, so it's hard to say.
Oh yeah, true. Okay, right. Yeah.
But it's one of those things where it's like, you know, I'm sure people look at me strange already. Like I was walking through Woolies one time, and I had like the baby on my chest, and then I think I had all four of them.
Yeah.
Right. And this other dad, like he had a pram. So he had one in the pram, and he had two.
Yeah.
And he was walking past me, and he stopped me, and he goes, "Excuse me." And I'm going, yeah. And he's like, "Are they all yours?"
Yeah.
Right. Like that was his reaction. And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, "Whoa, how do you do it?"
Yeah. That was the next thing I was going to say. I think people are looking because they're just like, how?
Yeah.
How do you manage to just function as a human and raise 4 humans and on top of everything else?
Yeah. Look, I think it's just like when, you know, people that have never fought, they go, how do you do that? It's no different. Like I think where people get stuck in life is that they overthink it.
Yeah, true.
Right? Rather than just like going with the flow, like, you know, if you accept a fight, do the fight.
Just do it.
Yeah, just do it. Like there's no point lamenting over it. You know, you can lament over it after, depending on the outcome, right? And like, as long as you've done that, spent that time to actually know who you are as a person, I think that makes things a lot easier. You know, people that don't really know who they are, and then they're like, oh yeah, I'm going to be this, right? They've already like gotten themselves onto this idea that they need this to be successful in life. And I think once you realize that, yeah, like if you actually strip everything away.
And don't limit yourself.
Yeah,
in how you might handle a situation or view yourself. Yeah.
Yeah. Like how many people do we know that would look at people fighting and I could never do that.
But then you're already telling yourself. So
self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah. Yes. That's it. 1,000%.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's crazy. Like what the human, I don't know, psyche, body, like we're creatures of habit. So whatever you eventually get used to, you can do. So like, okay, the first fight camp, that was like, oh my God, that was the hardest thing I've ever done. Second fight camp, okay, yeah, and then I'll add another part-time job to it. Third fight camp, okay, now I have a like serious relationship, 3 part-time jobs, you know, like because you just get better and better at handling things, right? So you can add more to your plate as you get used to things in life.
But do you also go through this period where it's like, okay, I need to cut that out of my life, And the reason why I say that is because I've done that a few times where it's like, you know, you bring on so much. And then when you actually have a time to just pause and reflect, you go, why am I doing all this?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So you've gone through that?
Yeah. I've gone through that, yeah. So I was picking up lots of extra side jobs and like just running around here, there, everywhere, so many different locations, and then still rushing to training. And then, so my mind was just never, like I was just thinking about the next thing I had to do. And I was never relaxed. And then I was never spending time at home, you know, because there's things outside of Muay Thai that are also important to me, right?
Yeah.
I need to give energy to those things too. So yeah, I cut out like a job that there was nothing wrong with it, but it was just something that was not really necessary, but adding more time and like filling up more time in my schedule that just wasn't needed. So honestly, my massive 2024 energy is just like, I am conserving my energy. So I'm not trying to be rude. I'm not trying to be antisocial, but the things that I choose to put my energy into, I want to put like all my energy into.
Yeah.
Which means I have to limit a lot of other things. So yeah, it might be friendships, it might be like social activities, it might be, I don't know, like business opportunities, or, you know, at training now, like training is not a social thing for me. And I have a great group of friends there, but for me, training, that's my job.
Yeah.
This is my life. Like I want to make this my life and have that be my full-time salary at one stage. Like that's still the dream I'm chasing. So when I go to training, that's my mentality. Like I'm not really there to muck around and like catch up and have a chat and talk about how tired I am or talk about my work day. Like, and so, you know, people, if you got anyone from SRG, if you see me in the gym and I look like I'm like blanking you, I'm not. Please don't take it personal. I'm really just conserving my energy.
Yeah.
That's all it is, because the things that I do pursue, I want to put 100% energy into it.
Yeah, it's priorities, right?
It's my priorities. Yeah, and I you know, I think people pleasing is a big thing that drains your energy, and I spent a lot of time doing that in my younger, like, you know, 20s.
Yep.
When you don't really know yourself. I was still finding myself. So now I'm like, I don't really need to prove, or I don't really need to go to that function if I don't feel like going.
Yeah.
If it's more beneficial for me to be at home with my partner and my dog because I'm going to be happier, and then I'll therefore have a better week because I've done this for myself, why not do that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I always say it's like when you play like any of those fighting games, you got a limited amount of resources, right? Like the health bar or whatever.
Yes, yes.
And then, you know, there's so many little things that will just suck your energy out throughout the day that, like sometimes it is easier to just cut your time down on those things.
Yeah.
And not really focus on it and focus on the things that you actually really care about and you're really chasing, right?
Yes.
So I think that's a great way for us to end this. If people want to find you, how do they find you?
I mean, I guess the main way is Dunk Buns on Instagram.
Yep.
That's pretty much it. I don't know, any questions or anything you guys want to find out about? I'm always happy to share any information that could help anyone in their fight journey or just, whatever you think you want to know from me. I'm always happy to chat.
All right. And then why don't you shout out, so what's for the girls, if they're interested in the next sparring day event, like is there a page for that or anything, or how they find us?
I mean, you could follow New South Wales Muay Thai Instagram page, or you could hit up myself, Ramida B, Super Saiyan Fit, Yolanda Schmidt, Gabriel de Ramos. We all have Instagram. That's it, really.
Cool. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.